John was making some clever reference that took us down the rabbit hole.
Derailing everything.
And
right.
Kat gleefully followed him. And I'm just shouting at the top of the hole, come back! We have a show in 45 seconds!
1980s Now.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now, a weekly examination of the importance of 1980s pop culture and its influence today. My name is Will, and joining me as always are my friends and co-hosts, Kat and John. Hello, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hey, hey.
So what were we talking about? Okay, so regional stores.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, folks, in the comments, what regional stores, right? So what we got so far? Zehrs.
So it was Zehrs. We did TG and Y. We did Neisner's.
Okay. I think we were looking for defunct chain stores that were regional to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Running out.
We had Bradley's. We had Kmart. A lot of people. Kmart's national.
Kmart. Yeah.
Two Guys, which was pretty regional, I think. I think that was out of New York, but we had it in Jersey.
You guys know Albertsons?
I've heard of it.
That was a grocery, not a department store, but also I think it got absorbed by Piggly Wiggly or somebody.
Oh, my.
I've heard of that too.
Yep. I've heard of Piggly Wiggly.
And Hoggly Woggly, the also truly a grocery store. No kidding.
When they grew up, it was like a... and then when it got beat...
Piglet to Big Hog? No, it's not.
Yeah. And then after that, it was bacon and eggs or something like that?
Wait, it's not a knockoff? Because
I don't
near
know.
Me, somebody started a store called Ha Ha.
Oh, instead of Wawa.
Instead of Wawa. And there was a whole lawsuit.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
I would think Ha Ha would win. Unless their logo was similar, there was enough to cause confusion.
I don't remember what happened, but they're not there anymore. That was a while ago.
Yeah. Wawa won in the long run.
Wawa got the last ha-ha on that one, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, welcome, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we got on here. I don't know how we got started, but we've got some important things to talk about, some current things, because on today's show, we'll review current news stories related to 1980s media, including Cher goes back to the 80s. Asterisk. Atari's want to talk about Atari's new Asteroid watch. And who is it for? I want to raise that question. If anybody at all. Eddie Murphy's got a new documentary coming. The Goonies reunite for Kiwi Quan. Josh Brolin, we're talking about the Goonies. Josh Brolin tells a story about how he received a harsh but brief acting lesson from Steven Spielberg. And, I love my legal stories combined with pop culture. The creators of Superman are suing Warner Brothers Discovery. And so right now, the new Superman movie that's due in July, it's in jeopardy in some countries around the world. There's time codes in the show notes if you'd like to skip around. Hey, after you've done skipping straight to the end and heard us thank everybody, including maybe you, head over to Gen X Grown Up. Once our theme song kicks in, you can click right over.
You've heard enough.
We should do now. I realize we create some kind of mega mix of our song going into your song. And then if you flip over, it just kind of... Well, your show starts off with commercials, though. We don't have commercials, so...
Yeah, that's...
Step one.
That's how I get paid.
You have to get commercials. Put them at the end of our show.
Yes.
Oh, Karen just got a Goonies DVD at Goodwill last week. Awesome find.
That was mine.
When you're done.
I gave it to Goodwill.
Yeah. It certainly wasn't going to watch it.
Mail it to John.
He's never
I found out there's no fish on a porch. I'm like, I'm not watching this.
John can never watch it now, Kat. You know that. He can never watch the Goonies. So
if he ever does, I want to watch it with him.
And because John will never watch it, nor has he seen it, has neither watched it. Wait, how do I say this? Since John has neither seen it nor will ever watch it, we're going to talk about 3 Goonies-related items later in the show.
Excellent.
Yeah. So,
excellent. I'll go get donuts.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that would be great. Take us with you. Just take us with you. So let's get to that by starting with the 1980s news. I see that Publix sign. I always think it says Publix. Does anybody else think that?
That's
no
different.
joke.
You're so nasty.
Yeah, that would be nasty, right? There's another hair in this food too. Son of a bitch!
That's their motto.
I think you got the hairnet on the wrong end.
A pube in every chicken is their motto.
That's their.
You go down the rotisserie aisle.
Instead of a chicken in every pot, it's a pube in every chicken.
That's right. Yep. Right. It's like the baby in the cake when it's Mardi Gras.
Oh yeah.
If you get the pube in your chicken, you win.
Yes. All right. There you go. Yeah, that's right. You know, they pluck the chickens, but they need to start waxing them, it turns out.
That brings a whole new meaning to a winner chicken dinner.
Yeah. It brings a losing sort of angle to it, doesn't it?
Is wax your chicken a euphemism for something?
Oh my God. I don't know. Let me Google it. Hang on. And I'm going to Google it. I'm going to put it with images. Oh, okay.
No, safe search on, please.
Hey, this week in 1980s news, as reported by People magazine, Cher's attempt to go back to the 80s goes hilariously wrong. Now, this whole story is one of those, what are they, warnings? Cautionary tale. A cautionary tale that if you're ever, in these movies, if you're ever granted a wish by a genie, you got to be real specific.
Right. Genies are assholes. They're going to misinterpret on purpose every time.
If you guys were ever offered a wish from a genie in real life, I mean, would you take them up on it? Or would, because of these lessons we've learned in pop culture, be afraid of them just fucking with you and twisting your words on you?
I would be scared. I would definitely be nervous. Yeah.
I think I'd pass too.
Really? I feel like if I took my time, if there wasn't a rush, I could craft a proper loophole-free request that wouldn't lead to any, it would be a paragraph. Wherever so far art thou? There's the party of the first part, henceforth known as John. The party of the second part,
and then have Will review it to make sure.
I don't
I'm going to run it through.
I'm sorry, I want nothing to do with this.
Oh no,
it's not my area of practice. Genie law.
Right. I've seen plenty of monkey's paw. I know what happens if you're not careful.
No. Oh no.
Right. Maybe your first wish is, I wish that you would, Genie, would provide me with a foolproof method for requesting another wish that won't have you dick with me. Or I wish that you would not corrupt my wishes in such a way to make me, have a negative outcome.
Thank you for rephrasing that, because I could see that first phrasing going completely wrong.
Dick with me?
Yes.
I threw the D. He threw the D. Somebody threw the D. All right, back to the real story. All right. So regarding the ad here, Cher isn't as successful at turning back time as she would have hoped. The believed singer, who's now 78 and still looks, I don't know, amazing. Like
tremendous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously she's had to have work done, but it's like top notch.
She can still straddle a cannon with the best of them.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Hang on. I got to Google straddle the cannon with images.
That's literal. I'm being literal. Don't need to look that up.
Hang on. I still had the waxing chicken thing in there too.
Oh no.
God. Oh no.
Oh, the combination.
So in this ad, she shows just how wrong things can get as she tries to travel to an earlier era, just like the lyrics of her 1989 song that Karen mentioned in the comments, If I Could Turn Back Time. It's a new Uber Eats commercial that premiered first in Australia. The ad starts off showing the Grammy winner humming along to her hit song as she walks into her bedroom and puts on a pair of large silver hoop earrings. I don't know why they included that detail in this news story. Like, what is that?
Is that somehow important?
Is that the MacGuffin?
Here's what happened. Somebody said, ChatGPT, describe this video.
Yes.
And there's the article. That's what's happening in this article.
Anyway, while she does this seemingly innocuous gesture, but hang on, it's a super meaning later on, payoff. She can be seen thinking about the lyrics for a moment of that time-turning song before pulling out her phone and searching Time Machine in the Uber Eats app. Well, of course, just like we were, presaging, teasing, her doorbell rings with a miniature time machine delivered to her door through the app, and the songstress tells it to quote, take me back to the 80s, end quote. Can anybody spot the problem with this, effectively wish?
It's the Y2K bug, isn't it?
Well, yes, right. She didn't include the first two digits. Because instead of the 80s, as we celebrate on this show week after week, Cher finds herself transported to the top of a cannon in a village in the 1680s. Immediately, her looks, which again are, stunning for 78, for 38, for 28, are played for jokes as one person exclaims that she looks both young and old at the same time.
She's a witch.
Yeah. Yes. Immediately, that's the conclusion. Superpowers.
Shouts the woman in the stocks. Clearly
Right. She's already in the stocks.
Yeah.
And she would know she's probably also a witch, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Based on what we see later, I think she knew exactly what she was doing, that lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. Characterized as a witch, the commercial quickly cuts to a trial before immediately she ends up tied up to a stake as the villagers, holding torches, play an instrumental version of her song, which I think that's the best part, is hearing that like medieval folklore, version. Yeah.
I give it the number 2 slot. I think the instrumental version of her song, the number 1 slot is one of the last lines. Are those my boots?
Yeah. Yeah.
This commercial is tremendous. And I would never know about it, but for being on this show, because
right.
Where do people see commercials anymore? Where are those seen? I have YouTube Premium, so I don't get commercials there.
Yeah.
Shows I watch have the commercials edited out, whether I record them off the air or download them or whatever. Yeah. How do you see commercials now?
This must be one prepared for the Super Bowl, I'm guessing.
Oh,
and we've seen it early, just like, I guess, and a lot of them, well, not a lot, but we've had in the past years where 80s, they had a series of 80s commercials throughout the Super Bowl. I know we also saw the one with When Harry Met Sally. Did you see that one where, no? So, Billy Crystal.
Not this year, right?
Last year? This year. Yeah. It just came out.
We haven't seen it then, no.
Again, I believe this one was created for the Super Bowl, but it's already out there. Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan reprise their roles as if they're still together, these, 35 years later. And they're back in the diner eating. And, it plays out much like the other scene. I don't remember what it's an ad for, but, Meg Ryan gets very orgasmic again, and someone says, I'll have what she's having, the same thing. But I don't know. That's all I could think, John, is this, we see this, sort of onslaught of ads around this time of year because, people are becoming aware of them because of the Super Bowl, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right. The one event that you actually watch for the ads, whereas everywhere else you skip past them. Yeah.
Well, the commercial finally ends with the words, time machine, no, time, as in the seasoning, yes. And it shows Cher now returned back to the present day cooking in her kitchen. Cher opened up about her decision to star in the commercial in a press release on Uber Australia's website, saying that, quote, I get approached to do commercials all the time, but the creativity and hilarity that Uber Eats presented appealed to me right away.
Me too.
It's well done. Well done.
Yeah. I mean, I watched it twice and it's a commercial. So that tells you something. There's entertainment value in it, even though it's Uber Eats. I mean, I don't feel advertised to.
Yeah.
It's more like a Coke commercial. It's like, watch this entertaining thing. Coke. It's watch this entertaining Cher video.
Yeah.
Uber Eats. It just, by the way, we brought you this cool video is kind of really what you're getting out of it. That's what I get out of it.
Yeah. And the marketing in the ad agency that put this together, I mean, what were the, connections they made to get there? Like they had to go from Uber Eats delivers food. All right, we'll start. What's this? Time. It's time. And then that goes to time travel. All right. We can't get, Michael J. Fox. So we'll.
Right. Somebody searched 80s.
Yeah.
Time, and they're like, "What? There's a turn back time song. Who sings that?" Right? That's how you probably got there.
Yeah, no, we can't get her. It's impossible. She doesn't do commercials.
I don't know. Be clever.
Karen says she sees commercials on Peacock. Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
there's some of these things that you paid for no ads 2 or 3 years ago.
Is there a tier you can pay extra for no ads?
Now there is.
Do that, right?
When I first had Peacock, that's what I had. Now I watch certain shows. Thing comes up, no ads. Click here. That's what I bought.
Right.
Keep moving the goalposts. That's driving me crazy. All right. Hey, another 1980s news as reported by TechSpot. Atari releases Asteroids watches for the game's 45th anniversary.
This is so cool.
I'm also going to put an asterisk on this story too.
An asterisk or an asteroid?
Ooh, cat. Yes, both. Well, asteroid, see the bottom asteroid. So the result of a collaboration between Atari and luxury watch brand Nubio, John, I'm going to say. Nubio, maybe?
I think so. Yep.
The Asteroids watches are available, Asteroid, from the latter's website in 5 different styles, each with a different colored band. Nebula Blue, Plasma Pumpkin, Supernova Red, Nova Nightfall, and Celestial Citrine.
Mm-hmm.
Those are way more complicated. They could have just said blue, orange, red, black, and whatever. I don't know what citrine is. Is that orange again? A different kind of orange? Right. Yellow?
These are the crazy names they were given the barbecue and hot sauces Atari collabed with.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Now, it's not immediately obvious how the wearers are supposed to read the time displayed on the watches. They use this Japanese automatic movement that moves 3 discs. The smallest of the 3 in the center is the original Asteroids triangular ship.
Ooh.
Yeah, John.
Ooh, Mr. Kate.
I know how.
Cat knows.
I know
Okay.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You do it. Take the honors.
So the center, us, like the shooter, that's the second hand, which they do mention in the article. And then if you look in the next ring, I'm pointing at my screen now, there's a little tiny ship, a little tiny red ship in that ring.
Yep.
And I believe that's the hour hand.
You got it.
And so I
right.
would say, considering where the other little ship is, it's one something. And so then you go to the next ring out, and there's another cute little tiny red ship just past. It looks like around 51 minutes. So I would say it's
Yeah. So it's about it's like 10-2 right now on that watch that we're looking at.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
No, not that you can tell the time at a glance or anything, but you can't tell time.
It's not easy. You need to track your little
What time is it? You're like, hold on, where are my glasses? All right, let me do the math.
Well, yeah. And
on the big hand. All right.
in the way you described it is perfect, Cat. But the thing that, folks, unless you're looking at the picture that we have here, it's chaotic because there's asteroids also rotating around the disk that have no significance, that are just making it utterly confusing to find the other little markers.
Do the asteroids rotate around?
Oh, yeah, they're on the rings too.
Yeah, they're on the rings, yeah.
That's amazing.
I would propose the kind of person that can afford this Asteroids watch doesn't give a shit what time it is.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
Time and money are irrelevant to this person.
They also can just pull out their phone and find out what time it is really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. As John alludes to, the watches are, get this, guys, there's a discount because originally were priced at $1,650. I'm talking about $1,650, but they were reduced to the generous low price of $499.
What a bargain.
But as they were only limited to 125 pieces, they're already sold out.
I got my 7. It's not
I got all the colors.
7.
Yeah. Well, and some duplicates and extras in case it gets scratched,
And if you want to feel even more envious of those folks who can afford to buy this super cool looking watch, it actually comes in a very nostalgic looking box as well, which was designed to resemble an Atari VCS console.
Yes.
It's got
I see they have Plasma Pumpkin on display there.
They do. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll tell you something in this photo that the article does not call out, and I've not heard anybody call out, is that amazing oil painting print that was on the cover of the Asteroids arcade Atari cartridge is on the inside of the lid. You can see the edge of it there.
You can see a little corner.
I know because it's my computer wallpaper. I recognize that corner of it. But yes, that's the oil painting for Asteroids.
Oh, that's so cool.
Very cool.
I'd just buy the box and put my smartwatch in it if I could.
Well, look, if there's any doubt who these are for, here's a quote from the creators of the watch. Quote, with its exhibition caseback, custom rotor and engraved details, each Ventana is a rare collector's gem. So yeah, 125. You make it priced out of regular folks who actually, the diehard fans of this system. No one's getting their hands on it. I just don't even understand this. Like, maybe if they had more at a higher price, that would make a little more sense. But
yeah, I guess it's like it was 125 per color, right? Or not, or 225 total.
Oh, you know what? I don't know. Let me see. I'm just looking back to the story.
I don't know. I thought it was 125 of each piece, like of the orange one, of the red one. But still, you're talking about 500 watches, right? 4 different variations.
You're right. Each one.
So what is that?
limited.
A quick 50 grand, right? If you sell them all, am I doing the math correctly?
Something like that.
$500 times 500 watches, 50 grand.
Yeah, sure.
If for a company Atari's a small company, but that feels like a drop in the bucket for them because the watch manufacturer is going to take the bulk of that money. And if they've already discounted it from what a watch like that could cost, I'm less concerned who is it for than who does it benefit. The watch guys are slashing the price. Atari, there's not going to be enough meat on the bone left for them. Even if they got all the money, what is 50 grand to Atari? I mean, it's probably not somebody's salary for a year even. So wouldn't they, if they did $100 watch and sold 10,000 of them, wouldn't they be better off maybe?
Yeah. And it's probably the case, right? That the watch company just paid for a license even, just the flat out.
I'm sure.
We'll give you X.
Yeah. but they didn't pay they didn't pay more than 50 grand because they're going to lose money that way. So Atari's probably getting, 5-10 grand. Who knows? Some small sliver.
Yeah, this reminds me that, Fossil did something like this in 2005-ish. Somewhere around that time, they had an Asteroids. They had a few different Atari watches that were.
Oh, really?
They were kind of shitty looking, though. They didn't deliver on what their expectation was. What's that, Kat?
Were they confusing? To read.
My recollection is the screen looked a little more like those Game & Watch kind of screens, like a real.
Oh, like a liquid crystal.
Yeah,
look
like it was.
thing?
So in that sense, the contrast wasn't enough, I think, to see it really well. It had a sort of a futuristic shape, but I remember them being terrible. But you could probably still buy one of those on eBay. I think at the time they went for, like, to John's point, I think they went for $100. There was a limited amount, but it was more than this printing, but they were garbage. I don't think anybody really wanted them. So it turns out, though, that this isn't, in addition to what I just mentioned, there was actually a recent example of this happening too, having a combination of a luxury brand, I guess Fossil isn't a luxury brand, releasing a game-themed watch. In 2021, Tag Heuer announced a partnership with Nintendo to create a version of its connected wearable featuring the gaming giant's famous mascot, Mario. It was priced at an outstanding $2,150.
Not for me.
Goodness.
I'm a broke.
I'm a broke? Is that what he said?
I'm a broke.
I'm a
If
broke.
you buy that watch.
Like toilets he's got to plunge now, that plumber.
Oh, no more coins.
Karen said, does anybody really know what time it is? I'm with you, Karen, right.
Does anybody really care anymore?
Yeah, it's a construct. If I'm on time, though I can't imagine why. Nick is too cool for me. I'm saying this. This is not what Nick wrote. What does NGL stand for?
I think it means
Not
not
gonna
gonna lie.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
There
guys.
we go.
Right. And we thank you for not lying.
Yeah, see,
We appreciate that.
these guys are, even though I'm the youngest of us three, they are younger in spirit, John and Kat, and so they know the lingo. Not going to lie, that's pretty dope. I'd have bought one. Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, you know how many
I'm
lawns
also
I
not
Kat,
going to lie. I had to think hard. I was looking at NGL. So, yeah. Yes, John?
Just say, Kat, Will was low-key calling us immature. I just want to make sure you picked up on that.
I totally did.
Not at
Yes,
all.
absolutely.
Hipper,
Okay.
much hipper.
All right. I'm the youngest of the group here.
Yeah. That was,
And yet,
Yeah.
these nerds,
yeah, I don't know that I was trying to make you guys sound immature so much as I wanted to remind everybody I'm the youngest person here. Out of these old
potato,
folks.
potato. It's a win-win. Whichever way you go. That's good.
I don't necessarily look that way. Brennan says, looks confusing yet cool, but what is even the real purpose for wearing a watch anymore? That's true. Although I have my
To get notifications when your phone's in your pocket.
That's right.
I have my primitive 1980s Casio watch on.
Whoa.
You know, I do find, I kind of wore it just because of, for vintage purposes, but I do find it's easier to look at it than get my phone out and click the screen or,
Agreed.
see
I
what time it
agree.
is. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I had a period of time where my watch was broken or whatever,
Yeah.
I could pull out my phone, but I got a little annoyed.
In reality, I mean, you have a point. Even if my phone is in my pocket, there's almost always within my line of vision a device that has the time clearly printed on it, synced up with the National Division of Weights and Measures down to the second. Again, don't even get my phone out. My computer says it. My car says it. The TV in the restaurant I'm in says it. I just like to wear a watch. If I go out without one, I feel underprepared.
yeah.
Not like nothing's on my wrist. What's wrong? I'm not ready to be outside today. So I always wore one for as long as I can remember. So I buy the nerdiest one I can and then use it as just a watch. Not all the things it can do. I don't know what it does.
So you'll go out without pants, but if there's no watch, then there's a problem, right?
It's one or the other. Yeah.
He feels
I have to choose.
He feels naked without his watch.
Without the watch.
I feel nakeder without the.
Yeah, look, you guys are familiar with this Casio. The little light isn't even bright enough to see the time when you're in a movie at the movie theater. You can see the first digit. You got to guess at the hour, at the half hour or whatever, the minutes. Got to estimate.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't note that the Asteroids watch, all the ink is glow in the dark too.
Oh, that's right.
So even if you're in the dark, but the problem with that is when I'm at the movies,
Yes, right.
with my digital watch, I can put it on movie mode. So when you move your wrist, it doesn't become a beacon.
Right.
With a glow in the dark watch, it's just going to be glowing asteroids on your wrist the whole way through.
Got to wear long sleeves.
Honey, where's my long sleeve shirt down here in sunny Florida? My turtleneck too.
Oh, you're wearing your watch today? Yeah. Okay.
John, you got to wear it on the inside, not on the top of the sleeve. He's not used to doing it. Hey, another 1980s news, as reported by Deadline, Eddie Murphy, a documentary at Netflix, gets a title. We should have had a guessing game to see, can anybody figure out what the title is? Yes, that's it. John got it right.
It's great. How do you spell that?
You spell it phonetically.
HYU.
This looks like a Korean documentary, Kat, the way you're spelling it. Netflix announced just last week that Eddie, it's called Eddie, a new documentary on actor and comedian Eddie Murphy is set to premiere on the service in 2025. The announcement was one of many made as part of the service's promotional event Next on Netflix. They also unveiled a first look photo from the doc, which is I'm not going to show it to you because it's just a current picture of Murphy.
It's a picture of Eddie Murphy.
So if you've seen him recently, you know exactly
right.
Like that.
We have trailers, then we have teaser trailers, then we have teaser for the teaser trailers. Now we have pictures to tease the teaser trailer. So
yeah. And
imagine that.
And I wasn't teased at all, John. Right? I mean...
No, it's a picture of Eddie Murphy.
You think they'd have maybe a vintage picture when he's a kid pretending to do stand-up. He did stand-up very young, so you could have it when he started out doing stand-up. I don't know. Anyway.
Yep.
In Eddie, Murphy looks back on his extraordinary journey and looks ahead at what's still to come. The film chronicles his meteoric rise from teen comic phenom to Saturday Night Live breakout and stand-up supernova to box office titan. It illuminates the evolution of Eddie Murphy, the trails he blazed and the records he broke on his way from Brooklyn upstart to Hollywood icon. I mean, this guy's had quite a career. He's one of the youngest cast members on Saturday Night Live, who is credited with saving it during that season that he was on, to going on and again at a very young age, starring in what ultimately became just blockbuster films like Beverly Hills Cop and Coming to America, and of course those films that happened in the 1980s just launched his career from there. In the decade since, he started in a number of popular movies. And also has done a number of voices for films like the Donkey and the Shrek franchise.
I really thought in the late 20-aughts that, did Eddie Murphy retire? Is he just doing voiceover stuff? Yes. And I didn't research it, but I thought that. And then when I started to see new movies pop up, with the Coming to America, I'm like, wait a minute. He's back. I mean, other than Haunted Mansion, I hadn't seen him in anything for the longest time, corporeally, in person.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he's in a lot of stuff, and surprisingly decent stuff, actually.
Yeah, it just seemed, this is just my recollection, that he wanted to be a serious actor, and so he was taking on some more serious roles. He did not want to return to the films that ultimately he has in the last few years, making another legacy sequel in some of his big franchises. Other than that, he was very low on the radar. Yeah, doing voices. He was in Dreamgirls comes to mind, but he did some serious acting, and otherwise wanted to be taking a little more, as an adult performer versus and preferred you. Yes, versus the adult comedian he was, I guess, in the 1980s. Right. Comedian for adults.
And then Bowfinger did well, and it's like, apparently this is the kind of movie I need to keep doing.
Oh, I like Bowfinger. Yeah,
I did too. Yeah.
Karen says that red leather suit would have been cool, I guess, to see in a picture, maybe. Is that what you mean? Yeah, that would have been cool.
I think so. I think she means that.
Kurt says it was good to see him host SNL again. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad he's got his sense of humor back. That Coming to America was fine, but it felt to me like a straight to DVD kind of thing. I don't think having been released in theaters, which it wasn't, would have helped. It just, there was something about the quality of it that made it feel smaller in scale, which it was, compared to the first film, which, seems to be shot in Africa, which of course it wasn't. And then, came to the U.S., was in Queens in New York. I don't know. There's sort of a more grander scale. This felt a little, it wasn't on green screen, but it felt like that to me in a sense. But Beverly Hills Cop, that latest one, boy, oh boy, I felt like that was a throwback in the best of ways and a real return to what we loved about him first in the 1980s.
In the Top Gun Maverick kind of way. It's like, I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about those two films, these Lego sequels, that somehow feel like the original 80s and yet feel modernized, but not artificial, like Coming to America was that you were describing. And I wish I knew the secret sauce. I would give it to everyone and say, here, use this. What's the formula? But sometimes you just hit on just the right tone, and it doesn't feel derivative or cheapened. It feels like a a worthy successor. And I think those were, like just like Beverly Hills Cop was, you said.
And Kurt says he took himself too seriously in the Axel F sequel. And he was definitely more serious. And I remember seeing interviews with him. There's a couple of things. One, he said he's not going to do that laugh again that John intimated.
That's right.
He said, I'm not doing that anymore. He just made a conscious decision to change his laugh, which is kind of weird to me. But and along those lines, you're right, Kurt. There were things that the director or the writers would pitch to him, like, we're going to do this. And he's like, nope, that's too jokey. That's too, from his perspective, he thought that the Axel F character would have grown up some, that he wouldn't be doing the same shtick that he did, 40 years earlier. It makes kind of a point to me. Now, here the three of us are on this show acting like we acted in third grade often, but, maybe when we're 60 years old, we'll give it up.
Yeah. And there are limits to that. I remember, maybe we talked about it here, maybe I read it in an article, but he didn't even want to wear like the jacket and the jeans and the sneakers. Like he'd wear different things. But listen, that is Axel F. You've got to wear that stuff. And he relented. But even that he didn't want to do.
Yeah, you're right. The director told him it's like Indiana Jones's fedora. And finally he was like, okay, I get it. I'll do it. And Nick says it helps to have an original story, which both Axel F. and Maverick had going for them. Yeah, it didn't seem, it wasn't, yes, exactly. Some of these things are just exactly the same story. You're right, Nick. They're just in a different year, a few years later.
An original story of parental neglect. Right. The Axel F. story.
Yes, you're right. Kurt says, I missed the laugh. You're not doing Shakespeare, Eddie. Yeah, I know, right? And when Brandon says his Dolomite was pretty good. Yeah, I wanted to see that. Somehow that just slipped, past me. But I could still watch it. Hey, in other 1980s news, as reported by USA Today, Kiwi Quan reunites with the Goonies. Goonies never say die. And gratefully, with the exception of the late director Richard Donner, who passed away in 2021, the original cast of the 1980 film has also just not literally died as well.
Right.
They don't only say it, they don't do it. Last week, the Goonies stars Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, Jeff Cohen, and Kerry Green reunited for Kiwi Kwan's hand and footprint ceremony at the famed TCL Chinese Theater in Los Angeles. Sean Astin did not attend, but he did join Quan, Cohen, Green, and Feldman for the premiere of Quan's new movie, Love Hurts, which I'm so excited to see. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. It
looks good. It looks interesting.
And joining those gathered for the ceremony out there in front of the theater was screenwriter Chris Columbus, who at the time was, nobody knew who Chris Columbus was, and now he's a go-to producer and director. In a speech, Brolin, who played Brand, said, quote, I could not be happier for you. I know we all are, all of us Goonies here, for an honor that is not only totally deserved, but celebrates all that is right in this industry. Love you, pal, end quote. And rare too, right? I mean, he's suggesting it's what's right about this industry, but rare that someone would have this second act. Second act, is that right? Third act? I don't know. You talked about this recently.
Well, second act as an actor, right? I mean, he continued to have a career in film, but not in front of the camera. So now his second shot at being in front of the camera. And for that matter, not only his second shot is now a leading man, whereas he used to be like a supporting actor, right?
Yeah.
So the second bite of the apple, I pulled him from the actual article, I think somebody said that, is a bigger bite than he got the first time, which is unusual.
In his speech, Quan got emotional as he reflected that when he was 13, he fantasized about one day being invited to imprint his hand and footprints at the Chinese theater after seeing Spielberg and George Lucas do so. Quote, of course, it was such a wild dream, and over the years, I would realize how naive that dream was. As the years passed, I would walk by the theater and be reminded how that once hopeful actor turned into just another moviegoer. And now here we are more than 40 years later. And not only am I acting again, but that crazy dream actually came true. Yeah, gosh, I can't even imagine.
Oh my gosh.
This seems like based on a true story that he could be in Hollywood and say, well, look, that part of my life, it's gone. It passed me by. And, I'm happy with what I'm doing, but that's just not,
not in the cards for me. Right.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of something in my life that would be equivalent. Like, oh, well, I never achieved that, whatever. Yeah. I guess I can't think of anything.
I think it was be on a podcast, right? And then you were
that's right.
now.
Oh, here I
am. Right. And then when that's all washed up later in 20 years, I'll be on a good podcast.
Yes.
Finally.
That's what it was. Be on a good podcast. I still didn't get there yet.
Yeah, got to put in the reps.
Take a bigger bite of the apple.
I have this feeling, and not so much anymore, but for years I've always felt as if I could tell what was going to happen in the future in a sense, right? Like I'd get a sense of the trajectory that I was on. And so nothing would ever surprise me, you know? Now looking back, of course, so many things have happened in my life that I couldn't have predicted. And that's a silly notion to have. But it was almost like we were talking about recently where I think it was this kind of governor or imposter syndrome where I didn't feel worthy of certain things. So I didn't imagine they'd ever be, you know, around the corner for me.
I think that's it, Will. Yeah.
Now I don't think about that anymore. I just think about heads down. What am I doing right now? And we'll see what happens.
Well, look, at our age, don't look too far in the future. Where will I be in 30 years? Oh, damn.
Yeah,
Let's not think about that.
Don't do the math. Yeah.
Never mind. Scratch that. What about tomorrow, next week? Let's focus there.
Hey, Kurt in the comments said for him, it was commenting in an 80s podcast. I guess he never realized.
Oh,
nicely done,
the
Kurt.
culmination of your dreams come true.
Yeah, well done.
That's for Kurt.
Kurt, I hope you're 95 years old.
just got it in under the wire.
Yeah. Because after that, I mean, if you're 25, you guess you got a long way to go after this high point.
I know. How can you top this?
Yeah. Kurt also says he's happy to see Kiwi having a revival. And Kurt Love Hurts looks fun. He's an effortlessly charming actor, and I hope he fits that action comedy everyman niche. Yeah, I think so, man. Like I said this when we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I haven't been really excited to go to the movies to see movies. John goes all the time. He's got that plan, and you know, that's a good way to just get out there and you know. And John's got to obviously stay in touch with all these things for content purposes. But I really want to go. This is like, hey, honey, let's get together, get some popcorn, date night. Oh, it's exciting to me.
I feel like the last movie that you and or Kat saw was only because of my bullying to make you go see it, right?
You didn't bully me. You know you didn't bully me.
Otherwise, you're not out there like aggressively, can't wait to see this or this or this usually. Yeah.
You know, you're right, John, because I just realized now we won't ruin it for anybody. You couldn't tell me the thing that would have gotten me there for sure.
Right.
Because
I just had to tell you to go.
Yeah.
Do it. Just do it. Yeah.
Yes. Marcus says the best kind of surprise is the getting something I didn't even know to wish for. Yeah.
That's kind of deep.
And finally, with regard to this story about Kiwi and his getting his hand and feet memorialized. Have you guys ever been to that theater?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I've walked it's a crappy part of town for one. It's a terrible part of town. When you said hands and feet, I can only think of barefoot for some reason. And I know that's not what you mean.
Yeah.
It's typically, unless it's like Chuck Norris or someone famous for, using their feet to fight or whatever, it's always like their dress shoes, their heels or whatever. But for some reason, every time you said that, I pictured Kiwi, shoes off, feet in the mud.
Yeah. It's more like shoe prints. Although you're right, even we call footprints, regardless of the footwear. They're footprints. Yeah, it was. I remember when I went. It's fun to see how your feet size and your hands size up right next to the actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like John Wayne had giant hands, but
Yep.
Harrison Ford had small feet. It's really surprising. It's that kind of thing.
So what was the most surprising that you found? Do you remember?
I don't remember who, but the examples I just gave about the sizes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was John Wayne might have been the actual one. It was somebody who has hands. I was like, this guy's huge.
Yeah.
And someone did have tiny feet. Yeah.
There's some, I remember one in particular, I don't know who it was, but because he was famous for his profile. It was not Hitchcock, but someone actually had mushed his face and nose sideways into the cement as well. Yeah.
Hitchcock would make sense.
I think it's people doing something that's kind of a callback to something signature about them sort of thing, like when, Star Wars was getting all their stuff. You had like the treads for R2-D2 and the robotic feet of 3PO.
I love that. That was cool.
Yeah. And they had like as entities, Anthony Daniels, I'm sure has a star, but 3PO has a star, right? He has his own.
I love that.
Yeah, I think it was actually 3PO had the surprisingly small feet.
Well, he had to fit in there, everything.
Which is strange. You'd think it'd be big feet to fit Anthony Daniels' feet in there.
Exactly. You're right. Yeah. I'm not talking about Anthony Daniels' feet, Kat. Yeah, the robot. They put the robot. They lowered him into the thing and R2 into the thing.
So cool.
Yep.
In other Goonies news, Josh Brolin talked about landing the role. Sorry, John. Wake up.
Come on.
Still the Goonies.
So on the January 30th episode of Literally with Rob Lowe, thank you, John, Brolin shared his memories of working on the Goonies regarding landing the part of Brand Walsh, the older brother to Sean Astin's Mikey. Brolin said, quote, I just looked right for the part. You look at Sean Astin, you look at the type of movie it is. I looked like a bit of a bad boy, but sort of a jock, and I was in good shape, so they were like, that's the guy. I went back 6 times just so they can make sure, and then I did it. Brolin also explained that nepotism made it harder for him to secure work in Hollywood, unlike what you might expect for most other performers that have that are a legacy. He said, quote, I've been told they pulled the Brolin thing. Are you James Brolin's kid? You want to be an actor, huh? So instead of that nepotistic thing, they looked at me and were like, oh yeah, so act.
Right. Like prove it.
Yeah. Which is
nice.
Probably, just like the Kiwi Quan story being rare. This is probably another rare story in Hollywood where someone didn't just get greenlit because their famous mother or father were involved in Hollywood. The reaction that he got, however, led the younger Brolin to teach himself acting, spending 90% of his time, as he described it, in bookstores, reading all about the craft. And it was this newfound theatrical wisdom that made Brolin feel comfortable enough to approach producer Steven Spielberg with an idea for his Goonies character. While shooting a scene in the subterranean tunnels. So there's this scene, John, where they're like under the city, that they live in, the town they live in tunnels.
Like Boston or some city?
Whatever, in Oregon, whatever that city is.
They're
I can't remember.
Out west. Yep.
Sure.
Well, the fish, where the fish porch
With
thing
the
was.
fish.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Right.
They're below that now.
General Fishchiff.
They're below the Goondocks, looking for the treasure. And while shooting that scene, Brolin pitched this gem to the legendary director.
So I said, hey, what do you think about, don't you think that the tunnels kind of represent my mother's womb? And what if we film me kind of climbing up the tunnel, but really I'm trying to cut that emotional umbilical cord of my mother, and I could have tears coming down my face. And I went into this whole thing and I was getting all excited because he was nodding his head. And then I waited. And then he looked at me and he said, why don't you just act?
Apparently, Spielberg encouraged him to just read the lines.
Kid, we didn't hire you to think.
So speaking of the Goonies, I got one last thing for you. And John, I think you could follow along. This is interesting to me too.
I'll try.
So according to Newsweek and a number of other outlets, this is what they report.
Oh, yeah.
This one's from Newsweek, but there's a bunch of other places. I picked Newsweek because Newsweek, it's a legitimate news source.
Ish.
Here's the story. Yeah, here's the story. Asteroid. Here's the story. Warner Brothers is adding, this is how they wrote it. Warner Brothers is adding water to its new Gremlins movie, which is next on the slate for the studio alongside a new Goonies movie.
That's clever. The little water reference.
Not only that, but Chris Columbus, who I just mentioned, is set to direct the Gremlins film. The man who helmed the first movie in the Harry Potter film series is currently attached to Gremlins 3, according to Deadline. And they go on to say, and by the way, so Chris Columbus wrote the Goonies. I believe he also wrote Gremlins, the first one. Joe Dante directed the first one. And so now he's going to direct the third Gremlins, according to Newsweek, which they say is according to Deadline. And Newsweek continues saying it'll be a sequel rather than a reboot, continuing the story set up in the 1984 original and its 1990 sequel, Gremlins 2, the new batch. All right. This is why this is driving me crazy, right? Now, you got Facebook taking down its fact-checking and all these social media things taking down fact-checking. It's one thing that this allows political people to come to power that don't deserve it because of all their bullshit. But when you lie about our movies... and then they came.
Line.
What's that? And then they came for me. That poem.
Yes.
So this is why they're saying this, Newsweek, and a bunch of other articles. Because in a long-ranging article in Deadline that's titled "Why Warner Brothers Shook Up Its Feature Exec Ranks as it Braces for an Auteur-Driven 2025 Slate," Deadline examines the change of executives at the studio and the studio's future. This is the only reference to either of those in the whole article, and the article's several pages long. It's one sentence. You tell me where they got all this. Quote, franchise hopes abound down the road in Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum, Practical Magic 2, DC's Clayface, and Supergirl. Drew Goddard's incoming script for a new Matrix, a new Gremlins from Christopher Columbus, and a Goonies treatment, end quote.
Are any of those valid?
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't even know what deadline's basing this on, but there's no talk in here about it's a legacy sequel. He's going to be directing it.
It seems like every other week I get confirmation and then denial and clarification and then confirmation. Like, no, it was never going to happen. Oh, it turns out it actually was. Oh, that was erroneous. And the next week it's like, oh, it's definitely, no, it's going to happen. I keep hearing like nobody knows because I think the hopes get built up from this self-consuming media that reads and reports rather than verifies. And then somebody straightens them out and they kind of pull it back. And then they read another article. They probably spawned it themselves because of something they wrote. And they, oh no, it is true. Turns out. Just don't count on it is what I'm saying on any one of those movies coming out because there's no way to know at this point until they come out with a teaser trailer.
There's such a quest for content that it's just.
You remind me how so long ago when we talked about Doomcock, who would make up a bullshit story, a bullshit place would write about it, and then on his next video he'd say, "Look, the news is reporting what I said is true." Yeah, they're quoting you dumbass.
Right. The news is reporting what you said.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it true.
Yeah, right. That too. Anyway, stay away from our pop culture.
Yeah. Quit it.
You could also fact check politicians. That'd be awesome too. I'd really
that'd be great
that as well.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, finally in 1980s news. Oh wait, we got a couple of comments I wanted to say here. Right. Oh, Kurt says they should do a Goonies meets Gremlins. Huh. I suppose they could. Yeah. I don't know that I'd have a problem with that.
That could be a problem because there'd be too much water.
That makes it, it just ups the ante. Yeah.
I don't get the water reference. What am I missing?
That's a Gremlins reference, John.
Oh, that water. Oh, okay. Well, they were used in the same sentence. And I'm like, how does water apply to the Goonies? It doesn't. Okay.
Well, they live on the water.
There's water everywhere.
The docks. Docks?
Not a drop to drink.
I see. We have to even explain docks.
The goon docks, perhaps.
And the sewers, the underneath,
tunnels.
The goon sewers.
And the fish.
What did you think the fish swam in, John? Finally, in 1980s news, as reported by the Hollywood Reporter, James Gunn's Superman threatened by lawsuit. In a lawsuit seeking to prevent the latest take on the Man of Steel from taking flight in several countries, Warner Brothers Discovery has been sued over the rights to Superman. The estate of Joseph Schuster, the co-creator of Superman, he created it along with Jerry Siegel, alleges that Warner Brothers Discovery lost its international rights to the character and story years ago, but continued to exploit them without its permission or compensation. In a complaint filed in New York federal court on January 30th, it seeks a share of profits from all works attributable to the alleged copyright infringement, including Zack Snyder's Justice League, Black Adam, in which there's a small appearance by Superman, and Shazam, also another small appearance, in key countries such as Canada, the UK, and Australia. In a statement, unsurprisingly, Warner Brothers said, quote, "We fundamentally disagree with the merits of the lawsuit and will vigorously defend our rights," end quote.
Well, I need this untangled.
Yeah. No, I can give you more detail here.
Okay.
I guess first, as far as what the implication is, the movie is set to arrive July 11th.
This year.
Yes. It's the first solo movie for the character in more than a decade. And there's a lot being put on it because it's, expected to be, as it's being planned out by James Gunn, the cornerstone for all these other DC properties that they're going to roll out subsequently.
As an aside, they keep saying that for every new DC movie. Oh no, this one is the start of the new DCEU. Oh, it didn't go well? All right, the next movie, that's the start of the new DCEU.
I guess in their defense, it's the first of the James Gunn era.
I feel like I've heard that before too.
The clean slate. So, well, look, if this doesn't work out, they'll fire him, get another guy, and then they'll do exactly what you're saying.
Right, this will be the start. Right, exactly.
DC's ownership of Superman dates back to 1938 when writer Jerome Siegel and Schuster, as I mentioned, a graphic artist, sold the rights to the character and the story for, in 1938, they sold it for $130. The hero's first appearance under DC's banner was in Action Comics #1, which detailed his backstory, secret identity as a newspaper reporter, Clark Kent, and the powers of super strength and speed. He didn't fly at this time until years later.
He did. He just didn't tell anybody. It was a secret.
How long can I keep this a secret? So far, just running really fast is fine. I don't need to fly. But anyway, since then, Superman's been a frequent target of litigation starting in 1947 when the duo sued to invalidate DC's ownership of the rights to Superman. The case settled at that time with a $94,000 payout to Schuster and Siegel to resolve the case. So like we've talked about in a number of instances where after copyright expires, the artists are able to reclaim, claw back their rights on their provision after a certain period of time. But in the case of Superman, the sister and brother of Schuster made a deal with DC back in 1992 that terminated that right in exchange for $25,000 a year. I don't know. Do the math. I don't know. 1992 to now, $25,000 a year. That is a pittance compared to the billions of dollars these movies bring in, and other things, T-shirts, hats, games, and on and on.
What did the brother and sister have to do with it? I guess they were representatives of his estate.
Well, yes. That's an interesting question, Kat, or a great question, because at the time of this, when they made this argument, that they would, or made this deal, the federal appeals court upheld the determination. But now, whether or not they had the rights or the authority to bind the estate in that agreement is in question in this new case as well.
Wow.
Apparently that issue was before the court years ago, but the court labeled it a, quote, complex one and just punted on it, which courts often do.
I know you could do that.
They do it all the time.
I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Now,
Somebody else's problem.
They're like, this is another court's problem. They do that all the time. Supreme Court especially, but all courts do it. If they can, but there's two, I guess, lines of thought. If they can avoid it because it's not really a question before them, they really have to. But I don't know how they got to a point where they could say, yes, you can make this deal and be paid $25,000 a year. We'll uphold it without first making a determination whether she had the rights to bind the estate.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's the part I don't.
Or maybe it was
get.
just, we'll pay you $25,000 a year to stop bugging us about the rights. Like, we're not going to acknowledge you have them. Just shut up.
Yeah.
Which that is a pittance, as you said.
Yeah. So even this now is up for grabs, or is being questioned again. My understanding is in this new lawsuit. But this time, Schuster's estate looks to take advantage of a UK copyright law, which automatically terminates copyright assignments 25 years after an author's death. And so by its thinking, it reclaimed the rights to the estate, that is, reclaimed the rights to Superman in 2017 since the graphic artist died in 1992. So everything that's happened since, they want money for that and all those places that the rights would have expired. And they're also now going back and saying, well, maybe this woman also couldn't have bound the estate for that $25,000 a year and, waived their rights to claw it back.
Are they going to have to pay all that back?
Yeah.
If it's considered invalid?
Well, that's what the copyright allegers would like to think, that they're all going to get all this back pay. But it's just such a mess. It does, like, you would like to think that all that time they could have said something, and now they're waiting. Oh, what? You have a new movie? Pardon me. Point of order.
Yeah.
And now you're going to mention it? Why didn't you mention it in the intervening years between when the copyright allegedly has reverted back to you, when all these things happened? You're just running a tally until something big comes along and you can jump in there and now it's worth litigating? It just seems snaky. Yeah.
And it has to have been worth litigating all of this time. Even when we didn't have movies, we had something, TV shows, merchandise.
Right. Superman has never been not popular.
Yeah. The comic books alone, I guess maybe that's a different, I don't know, deal that they had. I don't know. But the reason, I don't know the reason exactly why, but I will say this much at least. The attorney that they hired is this high profile IP attorney that we've talked about before. He's been involved in a number of these cases, including the Friday the 13th one, where Victor Miller was trying to get his rights back.
Yeah.
And if you remember, his name is Mark Toberoff, this attorney. The thing that struck me as odd about that deal, and it seemed a little shady to me almost, not to suggest Toberoff's up to no good. I'm sure he got what he was able to negotiate, but it's unusual, is he also has, not only did he get nearly $1 million in attorney's fees as part of that case with the Friday the 13th rights, he's like a creative partner in that deal now too. They have to work with Miller and this attorney now, is what I recall from that story we did a while ago. I was like, wait a second. How come the attorney didn't just do his job and then step away and go on to the next case? This is kind of weird.
I remember
Is
that.
there a conflict of interest in there, or you're self-serving? Yeah,
Something gross about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can say this or not.
Starting to think it's a money thing.
Yeah. And can I say this? I guess I could say it because it's just, it's hearsay. It wouldn't be admissible in the court for any purposes. I had a guest on the show once who behind the scenes told me that, I'll just say this, they didn't like this attorney. Say it that way.
I remember.
Their intuition about him was similar.
Uh-huh.
The one thing about this, are you saying, like you were suggesting that they should, what were they doing all this time? I think the most disappointing thing to me, and, Brolin said of Kiwi Quan, it's, what makes this, whatever he said, it's something that's good about this business or whatever. Wouldn't it be a great thing for Warner Brothers to just say, these people deserved something more than $130 when they first sold the rights. They deserved more than $92,000 when they had to fight for that, a decade later. And these, whoever is entitled to the estate, I don't know if it's the sister and brother or not, probably deserves more than $25,000 a year too. They probably deserve maybe a cut of something because of this. But instead of doing that, they just went on their way, and now they have to wait to get sued. And
Yeah, I don't know that Hollywood is in the business of who do we owe money? Let's seek them out, right? That's not the way they're going to do business, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be, well, here's what we can do. Here's what we think we have the rights to, and then we'll defend it if we're wrong. I think is really and two, I think there's a risk if you go out of your way to go, oh, we believe you are owed something of that. Well, that could be used against you later. Like, well, they acknowledge that we blah, blah, blah. And so it's almost like showing a weakness, showing an acknowledgement of debt by saying we would like to do the right thing. That's going to get turned around on you when one of those shady lawyers go, well, you already acknowledged by your own admission, you owe them something. Now you owe them a whole lot more. So,
that's true, John.
Can't really afford to do that in today's, today's.
When does it stop? What's the
right?
limit?
That's the problem. Yeah.
Ideally,
In order to be nice, everybody's got to be nice. That's the problem, and everybody's not going to be nice.
No, fuck that. Marcus says, can someone explain why the original artists who worked for a company and then also sold the rights are seen as sympathetic in this situation? Not being sarcastic, really don't get it.
It seems like that's the opposite of what you were saying. He's saying, well, why are they owed something beyond?
Okay, so they created this character in 1938. Oh, that's when they sold it for $130. What I don't know is, so there is a concept in copyright law where you work for hire, right? If you work for a company, they own whatever you create.
Right.
So if they worked for DC, it would be DC's. There wouldn't be a question about it. It seems they created it and then sold it to DC. So I guess what Marcus is saying, look, they got their money, right? Yeah, I guess in that sense, and maybe $130 in 1938 was worth something more than it is now. And they had to split it between the two of them. Remember they each got it? I think you're right,
And they couldn't
Marcus.
know.
Yeah.
They couldn't know how popular it would become.
But to Marcus's point, that's not on the company.
Right. And you could litigate, well, the company, they were taking all the risk. It might be worth nothing. So you have this super dude, whatever he's called. He's got an S on his chest, sure, whatever. Here's some money. We'll try to make him something. And they then invested to print they paid for the paper and for the ink and for the employees to letter it. And they did all of that at the hope it would become something. And so you could certainly argue, well, DC, they're the ones that made it popular.
Yeah, they invested in the marketing dollars, et cetera, and so forth. Yeah.
I agree.
They put all the,
if it were up to those two guys, it probably would not have become.
It would still be in a book somewhere, dusty on a shelf, right? Because they didn't have the wherewithal. Look, $130 was good for them. They couldn't afford to do printing on their own, right? So
That's right.
Yeah. But and I agree with that, and I agree with Marcus about, hey, why is it they have any kind of a claim at all? But there's something also what's legal, and there's also what's right. Right? It's one thing, hey, you had no idea how great this was going to be. It was well beyond our imaginations of what it could have been. It's a cornerstone of comics, in the way that the Atari joystick is emblematic of video games. The Superman shield is emblematic of comics in the universe. Like, it is the fulcrum around which everything else pivots. We had no idea it would be that. We don't owe you anything, but you go back to your point, Will. Wouldn't it be nice if they just did something for them? Well, you open up the door of legality by doing that. It's lawyers. Oh, God, they're the worst.
Okay. I mean, they could theoretically, I guess, create a contract that says, we're giving you this,
Sure.
and you owe
Contract.
nothing more, or a deal. But so John, you're talking about this. There's a difference between doing what's right and there's a law. There actually is a concept in contract law where contracts can be voided if they are immoral. So, and you could see that in situations where there's a real disparity between the two parties. And so the party without any power is being taken advantage of. They have no other choice. You got me against the.
Those are like
here.
often like if the elderly are trapped into some kind of a weird legal thing that they don't understand, maybe you can go, oh, well, you knew you were taking advantage of this powerless, uninformed person. Maybe they can leverage that.
That's a little different. That's probably going to be voided because of duress or something like that, or incompetent because you're incompetent. But I can't think of a good example. Well, no, maybe this is a good example. There are certain contracts that's happened with musicians, where years later they go, I got a pins for these records, and they look at that and say, well, these guys had no choice. Their music was either not getting out, or they had to take this really shitty deal from Arista or Columbia, whatever the record label is. So we've seen some contracts revisited and some royalties revisited as a result of that. I think that's a better example. I think also with child actors, we've seen that happen. And I kind of recall, if you remember, I talked to Keith Coogan a long time ago, but he's part of a organization that I think was started as a result of his grandfather, Jackie Coogan, who is Uncle Fester of the Addams Family, being taken advantage of. And they had this movement to try to fix this. And Jackie Coogan was a kid actor and was taken advantage of when he was a kid. So it's those types of things, I think, which are a great disparity of power between the two parties. And it's like either you'll work or you'll sign you'll work and sign the shitty contract, or you'll just go hungry.
Right.
That's what we're talking about. So maybe it's that, Marcus. I don't know. But
You're trying to tell me that lawyers have some ethics? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're trying to posit?
Well, of course they do, John. Of course they do.
Yes.
But the reality
Some
is,
of them
if
do.
you want to be pessimistic, take the most cynical view.
Not the billboard ones, but some of them do.
Yeah. Look, the most cynical view is there's always two sides. And so we can both be motivated by money and make the arguments that this is immoral because I'll get paid if it is. You want to be really cynical, right? I mean,
that's my motivation.
This conversation does remind me, though, that once again, it's time to play.
You gotta be kidding.
All right, look, we're about to close out the show, cat warning. But
I'm always ready.
very quickly here, we're going to play a quick game where you're gonna put in a bid, I guess, or you're going to give me a dollar figure because, as I mentioned, after these two young cartoonists from Cleveland, by the way, sold the rights to Superman to what was then Detective Comics for $130 in 2012. The paycheck that was used to give them that money was auctioned to the highest bidder.
Oh no!
I'm going to give you.
So the $130 check was auctioned.
Yes.
In 2012.
With I'm going to give you the sad sort of clue is.
Okay.
It was auctioned for more than these two young guys got in 1938.
Okay.
Crazy. Okay.
So,
even adjusted for inflation, probably.
Yes.
yeah. All right. So what do you think?
The thing that this check has going for it is that it's tied to, this is, like the origin of Superman.
Yeah.
I feel like somebody is thinking that this is really special. Okay, I'm going to say $500.
All right, what do you think, John?
So that barely covers inflation, I think.
Well, I suppose. That is a long
$130 back then for inflation. And I think, its connection to Superman and the history of Superman, I think, probably makes it way more than that. Because, look, people that go to these auctions, $500 doesn't pay the butler that day. So I don't think $500 would even matter to people in these auctions.
True.
So,
$500 would just about get him an Atari Asteroid watch, and that's it.
Yeah. Not shipping, but it gets you there.
Just one color.
I'm going to go $115,000.
Well, the actual auction in 2012 for the $130 check that paid off Siegel and Schuster was for $160,000. John's right.
Oh my!
Yeah.
Wow.
Gosh, these poor guys.
Yeah. And I didn't go over either. Yay.
Now maybe one of their heirs had the check, and so they maybe they got a little more money there.
Okay, so it makes
But-
up for all the money they haven't gotten.
Not exactly.
Right, but probably not.
Yeah,
It was probably some
not.
teller. He swiped it.
Oh, good point.
You're right, because it would have been cashed. You're right, John.
Right. Oh, look who endorsed this. I don't put this in my pocket.
Yeah, right. I guess you get it
Or in
back
my watch
every time.
pocket. It was old. I put it in my watch pocket.
Wow, well, I was way off on that. Oh,
that's
man.
okay.
You were. That's rare. You usually win the bidding games, Kat. So it's my
That's true.
turn.
It was your turn, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, hey, that was a show.
I'm on this. Our show
Yeah.
is brought to you thanks in part to our early adopters, Karen Flieger and Rick Berger. And thank you especially to our Secret of Our Success Level Patreon supporters, Matt Marino, John Henderson, Brandon Greer, Nick Guillory, Marcus Taylor, and
Not bad.
Tony Gray.
Hey, thank you so very much, guys. We're so grateful.
Yes, and 4 out of those
Yeah.
4 out of 6 of our Secret of Our Success Level patrons were here tonight. And 1 of our 2 early adopters was here. I just think that's cool.
That's what you were doing this whole time. I saw you just kept jotting something, and then somebody would leave, I guess, because then you were crossing off.
She
And
was
then-
taking attendance.
Yeah, then she wrote it
She
back
has a
again.
role. Is someone going to get a perfect attendance award at the end? Is that what's going to happen
Right.
at the end of the year? This semester.
Yeah. Hey, if you can't make it to one of
Sorry, Rick.
Oh, Rick.
our, he's getting held back. He's got to be a patron for a little longer now before you get
He
out.
needs to repeat.
You'll have to listen for another season.
Yes.
Sorry.
And the way our patrons work, just for folks who want to become a patron, it's blood in, blood out. So Rick is going to have to be in until he beats a cat up. And Cat is a ninja.
It's true.
I think he knows that too.
Yeah, but we're so grateful for you guys. No violence is necessary to support the show. In fact, you don't even have to be here during a live, but it'd be really cool to hear your voice. Just go to patreon.com/1980s now, and you can find out how to give us $1 or 10 or 130. That would be fine too. You won't
or
get any rights.
500, 115,000.
Or just give us an Asteroids watch. I would take that.
Oh,
Yes.
we could take turns with that.
Well, we get a new color every month, Cat. Yeah.
Oh,
Or give us
get a whole
us-
bucket of watches.
If we got
Pass
that,
it.
the dollar value of an Asteroids watch, that'd be amazing. All right. Hey, that was that. So we will talk to you again next time on 1980s Now.
Until next time.
Under the Goondocks.
Joe says, I'm not an attorney. You got my attention, your joke, 'cause it's a long paragraph.
Lawyers love prose.